It has been awesome seeing everyone loving TXR's full release so far, and personally having now played through early access a handful of times as well as working my way through the full game now, I've picked up a lot of tips and noticed some things that many players tend to miss or don't learn until much later in the game. So I want to run through my top tips for new players both to this game and to the entire series that will make your experience in TXR even better. Let's start with the D-pad. There are a handful of controls that the game doesn't really tell you about. For controllers, these are all on the D-pad. On keyboard, they default to U, Z, C, and X, and for wheel users, you'll have to check out the settings to see what these are bound to. But the first is auto drive. Pressing down on the D-pad while out on the road and not in a race will turn on auto drive, letting the game take over and cruise along the highway at the speed limit for you. This is a good alternative to just pausing the game because it still racks up your mileage, which gets you closer to certain wanderer requirements and closer to each night's long run bonus, which we'll talk about more later. It's also a great way to let your engine cool down if you're playing with the additional rules turned on. The next set of inputs are for your turn signals. Left and right on the D-pad turn on their respective turn signals, which is not only nice from a role-playing perspective, but also has a use in racing. Whenever you approach an intersection while in a race, you'll see this pop-up that informs you which direction your rival is intending to go. If you're in the lead, you might think you still have to go down the route your rival has chosen so as not to end the race in a draw. However, you can actually use your turn signals to change the route as long as you're leading the race, which is super helpful if you have a specific direction you want to go. You can even use it to trip up the rivals a bit, causing them to have to cut across traffic and sometimes slow down, but be careful with that because if they can't get over in time, you'll still end the race in a draw. Now finally, up on the D-pad activates your hazard lights, which you can use to cancel out and forfeit races if you ever need to do that. So use that D-pad. I found that so many players miss out on these inputs and they can be really useful in certain cases. Now moving on, a lot of players will discover this at some point, but just in case, be aware that you can race anyone, including the traffic. Any car you see can be challenged, and this is a great way to make money while traversing across the map between major rivals. Instead of just cruising, pick up traffic battle after battle along the way and make some extra cash while racking up your skill combos and win streaks. Just be aware of the taxis, they don't mess around. Now speaking of making extra money, I hinted to this a minute ago, but turning on additional rules in the garage menu is a great way to make a lot of extra cash, but there is a trade-off. You'll get 2 new gauges on your HUD for both water and oil temperature, and will have to manage your temps or end up putting the engine into a limp mode, which limits power and speed. On top of this, your tires will now wear down outside of races, but at a reduced rate, only a quarter of the normal wear while in a race, so you can still feel comfortable cruising for long distances. The reward for these additional rules is a 50% bonus to rival payouts, which is absolutely worth it, so I encourage everyone to use the additional rules if they can. We'll stick with money-making tips for now and talk about the perfect acceleration skill. Many skills like drifting or nearly missing a car can earn you credits, but a lot of players, me included, missed this one early on. If you wait to hit the gas until right when it says go, you make an extra 1,000 credits for getting a perfect launch, which also does give you a small speed bonus. The credit bonus can also be increased through perks and is a great way to make basically free money on every single battle while also being a bit faster. Now I also alluded to this earlier, but you get a huge credit bonus for staying out longer each night. The long run bonus starts at 100k and is rewarded each time you drive 25 kilometers or about 15.6 miles in a single night. This can be tracked really easily by looking at your trip odometer in the bottom right of the HUD, so make sure if you're close to hitting that distance to just drive the extra mile or so to hit that bonus. And again, this is why it's better to use auto drive in most cases instead of hitting pause if you need to step away from the game for a minute. The bonus does stack too. Every 25 kilometers you drive nets you an extra 100k, and again, this bonus can be increased through the skill tree. Let's talk a bit more about the skill trees actually. You of course earn BP from defeating rivals, which is spent on nodes in the various trees, and you'll get a big chunk of BP for defeating a rival the first time, but can still earn more for beating them again based on their level. Here's the chart for it. As you can see, each 5 levels is essentially a different tier, so as you progress and unlock higher leveled rivals, it becomes easier and easier to grind for more BP. Be aware though that beating traffic cars does not give you any BP, just some bonus cash. Now, assuming you're playing on the default challenge mode, early on you should be focusing on unlocking every performance upgrade first, as well as some early permanent income bonuses like battle reward up and tuner arrow cost down. Don't spend BP on unlocking cars you won't use either. And for some light advice on which cars to pick first after growing out of your starter, the EK9 Civic and BRZ are some of the best picks. If you're ever wondering what car you should choose next, the speed metric stat you can see next to the rest of the car's stats is actually a fairly good indicator of how well the car will perform. You very likely will not be able to take your starter car all the way through the game. The cars are essentially tiered, so you'll want to get new cars as you progress, and while engine swaps do exist and can break through those tier restrictions a bit, they're more of an endgame mechanic, not something you'll unlock during your normal playthrough. Now back to the skill tree. Once you enter the mid to late game, do not sleep on driver skills. Some of these active perks are extremely powerful. For example, this one that basically makes you invincible while you're using nitrous, which is great for giving you more time to catch up to a rival that shot away from you at the start of a race. There are some seriously wicked skill combos towards the end of the game. That said, earlier in the game, one of the best permanent perks to get as soon as you unlock it is valet service, which lets you fast travel between parking areas freely without ending the night. This is key for building up those long run sessions and battling a bunch of rivals every night without having to drive all over the map. After this, you could also pick up the tuner summon to get the legendary tuner at any parking area, and speaking of, this tuner is not needed to beat the game. If you pick strong cars and keep them upgraded, you shouldn't need these bonuses, but that's not to say they aren't helpful. The tuner will upgrade a random performance part by 1 level each night that only lasts that night. He can even upgrade parts past their max rank, so if you're struggling towards the end of the game and have cash to burn, don't forget about the legendary tuner. That said, again, try to avoid using his services if you can, because especially later into the game, it can be very expensive. Another thing worth mentioning while we're here is that talking to people in the parking areas will give you hints on how to race certain wanderers. TXR veterans will probably know about this, but for beginners, especially if you see a yellow chat box over a parking area or next to a person's name, make sure you click through that dialogue to possibly find out some wanderer requirements. You will also run into a few wanderers that only race you if your license plate is from a specific region, but if you don't speak Japanese, the rumor will be kind of useless because you can't translate the text back to Japanese characters. In the reference page though, you can see both the Romaji or English text next to the Japanese text, so it's a bit easier, but you still need to tab through a bunch of areas to find the right one. So honestly, I would suggest just using a translation guide if you want. I linked one in the description below. For another quick tip, know that you can click on objectives in the map screen to find out where the required rivals are on the map, even if they haven't yet been revealed to you. If you press the clipboard here, you can see who is currently spawned on the map and where they are, and don't forget to check parking areas either. Now real quick, I also want to mention, because I know this is a frustrating feature for some, that you can turn the high-speed camera shake down or off entirely in the game settings. So if that bothers you, like it does for many of us, know that you can just adjust it to your liking. And for a final important tip, officially the game only lets you manage one save. Starting a new game will wipe your previous career progress, and while there is a new game plus mode, some people still might want to manage multiple saves, and luckily this is pretty easy on PC. The game saves to your local app data folder. You can find this by typing run into the start menu, then typing app data and clicking local. Then scroll to your Tokyo Extreme Racer folder, click saved, then save games. This folder with a string of numbers is your complete save file. You can copy it somewhere else and put it into a named folder to help you remember what the save is for, and if you ever want to swap to a different save, just replace this folder with any of the other backed up save folders you have. I used this a ton in the early access to bounce around between different parts of the game. And with that, folks, I think I've imparted all the knowledge I feel a beginner should know. If you have any other questions, definitely feel free to ask them in the comments, and if you have any relatively spoiler-free tips that weren't mentioned here, definitely throw them below as well. Thanks for watching, I hope this helped, and I'll see you in the next video.